Welcome back. You should have written down a list of your most important goals. Now, if you haven't done it, please stop, don't look at the screen anymore, and do that right now. Okay, if you're going on, I'm going to assume that you have written goals in front of you. So what I'm curious about is, what did you want? What are your goals? What category do they fall into? Let's take a look at the first 3 bullet points on the graphic. Were your goals primarily physical? So if you look down at your list of goals, do they say things like, I want a new car, I want a new house, I want a new job, I want more money? Do they relate to physical type of items? Or are they more emotional? Do they talk about wanting more love, more happiness, things along those lines? Or are they more spiritual? Do you talk about maybe experiencing the divine or certain types of meaning entering your life? We all have different ways that we think. We all have different filters that we view things from. And in this particular session, we're going to be looking a lot at those particular filters. And this is the first set of filters that you're going to become aware of. So as you look down on that paper, probably what you're looking at is that you have favored one of these categories over the others. Maybe you have more physical items listed. Maybe you have more emotional items listed, or maybe you have more spiritual items listed. Just because you default to that right now, that does not mean that that's the most effective way for you to be thinking about and writing down your goals. One of the things that I want to get through your mind regarding this first section, but also the entire range of possibilities and techniques involving the model, is that you need to be constantly experimenting. Here, what I'd like you to do is begin to experiment with rearranging your goals so that maybe if you favor physical on the sheet of paper in front of you, shift some of those over to emotional or over to spiritual. You may very well be in a situation where you find that emotionally written goals are more effective for you and happen with greater regularity than physical type goals, even though for your entire life, whenever you've used goals, they've been primarily physical. We want to get you mixing things up. We want to get you experimenting so that you can break out of the patterns that you've had to this point and discover the patterns that are more effective for you. This is especially important for this first probably half of the model, but especially the first third of the model, where we're talking about being very, very firmly rooted in symbolic consciousness. We want to really mix around these symbols. We want to scramble these symbols and play with them. We want to break through and find the combinations of symbols that are more effective for you that you've never done, that you've never found before, simply because you're rooted in very specific patterns that have been built up over the course of your life. Now, when we're talking about goals, there's lots of different ways to represent them. And a big way to represent them is whether they should be more specific or more general. This is another thing for you to experiment with, another thing for you to play with back and forth. So a general emotional goal, for instance, you might say, I want more love in my life. A specific goal might be, I want the love of my spouse in a certain way, or I want to love my spouse more in a certain way. So you can see the difference there between a very general goal and a very specific goal. Now here again, a very general goal might work better for you, or a more specific goal might work better for you. You can look down on your sheet, and if you say, I want a new job, well, obviously that's a very general goal. If you say, I want a promotion to be the foreman of such and such a section where you currently work, or to be a vice president at such and such a department where you currently work, or at another firm, or whatever, that is more of a specific type of goal. So you can see which you favor, and you probably have an intuitive feel for how well your goal setting has worked out to this point in your life. And first of all, if you haven't done it, start doing it, because there's an enormous amount of research on the success involving just simply setting goals. So you want to mix them up between the different physical, emotional, and spiritual categories. And you also want to mix them up between the general and specific type of categories. Now, interestingly, as you get more specific and as you start playing with more specific in one, it will often lead to uncovering things in others. So, for instance, if I want a new home, well, visualizing that home in detail and really specifying what it is that I want will probably allow me to uncover specific emotional and spiritual level things that I want. So, for instance, I might discover that spousal love that I mentioned as a specific type of love relates in some way to visualizing the home. Finally, don't forget altruism. And by altruism, what I'm really talking about is service to others, considering others' happiness, things along those lines. I think it's always a good idea to have, as part of your goals, service to others. So don't just have a new car for you. Don't just have more love or happiness for you. Don't just have more spiritual or certain types of meaning in your life for you. Also incorporate others' happiness. Incorporate service to others in your list of goals. So the first thing that we want you to do here is take a look at this list of goals and then ask yourself, which of these types of things do I favor and how can I mix that up? How has goal setting worked for me to this point in my life? Do I have any indications of what have or haven't worked really well? And then start changing it up and start experimenting and start seeing if certain combinations of these factors are more effective than others.